the devil actually exists, but his appearance is far from how he is commonly depicted. Nikola Tesla, the outstanding inventor of his time, once shared an incredible story. It was so extraordinary that Tesla never mentioned it publicly and only confided it to Mark Twain, his close friend and one of the greatest American writers. This conversation took place shortly before Twain's death in the year 1910, when he was 75 years old, and Tesla was 54. Despite the age difference, the two shared a close friendship based on mutual admiration and similar interests. According to rumors, Twain was so impressed by Tesla's words that he passed them on to his daughter Laria on his deathbed. This story, full of mysteries and peculiarities, remains shrouded in secrecy to this day. No one can say for sure what is true and what is fiction. Tesla himself preferred not to reveal any details. Mark Twain, a famous writer and master of satire, increasingly reflected on death in the final years of his life. His works, characterized by a sharp view of the world, sometimes portrayed God as a stern judge, and other times as an indifferent observer. Twain openly criticized the Christian Church and doubted its truths. Yet, like many others, standing on the threshold between life and death, when ordinary logic no longer applies, even the most rational minds begin to wonder about what might be hidden beyond the visible world and what the mythical Rainbow Bridge might hold. In such moments of philosophical conversations with Tesla, the most profound and secret questions were discussed. One day, during a casual conversation, Nikola Tesla told a story he had never shared with anyone before, a revelatory experience that left a deep impression on him. However, there are no written records of this conversation. When Mark Twain, whose real name was Samuel Clemens, lay on his deathbed, he passed on what he had heard to his daughter Laria. These words became a kind of legacy, but they were never written down and remained preserved only in memories. Nikola Tesla, the outstanding and enigmatic inventor, amazed those around him with his abilities from a young age. His ability to envision images of future inventions and his unusual perception of the world impressed even the most convinced skeptics. He slept only 2 hours a day, and his phenomenal memory allowed him to retain the smallest details after a single encounter. Yet, behind his talent lay challenges as well. In the year 1907, Tesla found himself in a difficult financial situation. Debts for the hotel where he lived and enormous expenses for his experiments drove him to despair. Despite these problems, Tesla continued his research. His visits to Wardenclyffe, where he connected devices emitting high-frequency electrical discharges to his head, became legendary. Once, he admitted in an interview, "I let 150,000 volts pass through my head." According to the scientist himself, these experiments induced a state similar to lethargic sleep. This state bordered on the edge of life and clinical death and was accompanied by a slowdown of metabolism. Yet Tesla's body continued to function. On one of these mystical evenings, when time seemed to stand still and became blurred, Nikola Tesla once again found himself alone with the labyrinths of his mind. He tried to calm the restlessness caused by his failures and organize the chaos of his thoughts. His days were filled with worries, financial troubles, undervalued inventions, and mounting debts. But at that moment, all of this seemed distant, as if his consciousness had shifted to an entirely different reality. And then Tesla felt something new, something previously unknown. This feeling, reminiscent of a silent yet persistent presence, emerged somewhere at the edge of his consciousness. It seemed as though he was being observed, but not with eyes, rather in another, inexplicable way. He spent some time trying to identify the source of this feeling. His mind, which was still fully under his control, suddenly encountered something foreign, a thought that did not belong to him. Yet Tesla felt no fear. He was a scientist, accustomed to exploring the inexplicable. Soon, he managed to perceive what was observing him. It was something unusual, a luminous entity, differing in form and spectrum from anything he had ever seen before. It was neither bright nor blinding, yet it stood out distinctly from its surroundings. This light seemed alive and appeared to have its own will. Tesla could not explain this phenomenon, but one thing was clear to him. He was facing a being that transcended the boundaries of the material world. People were used to depicting the devil as a horned monster, but in Tesla's vision, it was merely a glowing cloud. He could not comprehend what it was, but it did not seem to possess the characteristics typically attributed to evil. This being did not threaten him, nor did it invade his mind, yet it appeared entirely isolated and independent. Tesla decided to take the risk and attempt to establish contact. His curiosity outweighed any fear, if he even felt fear at all. He focused on trying to reach out to this light and understand its nature. Here, an interesting symbolic parallel emerges. In various cultures, the name Lucifer is associated with the bearer of light. The Latin word lux means light, and phero means to carry. In ancient Greek mythology, Phosphoros, the equivalent of Lucifer, symbolized the morning star, the planet Venus. Among the Slavs, there was a counterpart called Denisa. However, since the Middle Ages, Christian tradition has given Lucifer the image of a fallen angel, making him the embodiment of Satan. But let us return to Tesla's vision. His bearer of light was far removed from the usual stereotypes. This light seemed to be something entirely different, neither evil nor good, but something that transcended the boundaries of human perception. The being he encountered remained a mystery to him. Nikola Tesla's curiosity outweighed his fear, and he decided to establish contact with this enigmatic light. The light appeared to penetrate his thoughts and create a connection that could hardly be called conventional communication. There was no typical exchange of questions and answers. Instead, the scientist's consciousness was filled with an influx of information so intense that it seemed as though his brain was instantly restructuring itself and forming new neural connections. It was like enlightenment. Suddenly, everything became clear. The complex puzzle came together into a single picture. In that moment, Tesla realized, this light was none other than the devil. However, the conventional understanding of the devil turned out to be incorrect. This being was not an enemy of God and had no intention of destroying his plan. On the contrary, the devil fulfilled his duties by observing life on earth. He was one of the angels assigned to oversee the created world, though his role differed from that of the angels who were closer to the Creator's throne. This task was difficult. History provides examples of individuals who sought spiritual revelations by detaching themselves from the physical body through prolonged meditation, strict fasting, and the complete suppression of physical needs. These people attempted to understand the Creator's plan while leaving the material world behind. But the encounter with Tesla was something extraordinary. The scientist was not consciously seeking higher meanings. His discovery occurred spontaneously, thanks to a unique combination of intellect, intuition, and the unusual working methods of his mind. During this unusual communication, it seemed as though the devil and Tesla were studying each other. Their consciousnesses partially merged, allowing them to see the world through each other's eyes. Tesla felt the power hidden behind his own inventions. He saw how his discoveries could change the world, not only for the better but also as a source of immense evil. These visions deeply unsettled him. He realized that he bore a responsibility because his inventions had the potential not only to save lives but also to destroy them. The devil did not interfere with Tesla's thoughts or give him any instructions on what to do. He simply allowed the scientist to see the future and left the decision to him. This moment became a critical turning point for Tesla and shaped his understanding of the role of science in the fate of humanity. This experience shook him to the core. The connection to the mysterious light abruptly ended, leaving him in shock. His body was seized by convulsions. He felt himself falling onto a hard surface. When he opened his eyes, he saw the world around him, but everything seemed alien. His heart was pounding, his clothes were soaked in sweat, and his consciousness was gripped by panic. It was like waking up from a nightmare, only the sensations did not fade, even as reality set in. Tesla's photographic memory allowed him to retain every detail of this terrifying event. He remembered every second, every feeling, every minute facet of this strange encounter. Throughout his life, He repeatedly returned to this experience in his thoughts, trying to understand and explain what had happened to him. These memories became an impenetrable labyrinth for him, one from which he could never find an escape. Many believe that Tesla could have radically changed the world. His ideas, such as wireless energy transmission through the atmosphere and the death rays, seemed incredibly promising. Yet none of these technologies were ever realized. It is known that Tesla destroyed all records of these projects. Whether these inventions were too dangerous or underestimated by his contemporaries remains an unsolved mystery. The devil tested Nikola Tesla by offering him the chance to feel power and strength that could change the world. This temptation could have been disastrous, but as the scientist himself claimed, he resisted. Tesla turned his thoughts away from the allure and returned to what he believed was the true truth. Today, he is remembered as one of the greatest geniuses in history, not as a man who succumbed to the dark side. In one of his conversations with Mark Twain, Tesla mentioned that God indeed exists. He stated that the devil fulfills his role by tempting people to reveal their true nature and test the strength of their spirit. Tesla also shared his belief that death is not the end. He was convinced that no human who has ever lived on Earth disappears without a trace. In his view, they all remain with us in some way, invisibly present in our world. Tesla's revelations remain a mystery. People often attribute their actions to the influence of external forces, saying they were possessed by the devil. Yet all of humanity's suffering results from its own choices. No one forces us to make mistakes, to walk past a starving animal, to litter the streets, or to show indifference. Perhaps the devil is a kind of overseer sent to Earth to test humanity's moral resilience. His task might be to discover what people are capable of, reveal their true nature, and understand the essence of their soul. I look into the future and see what is not yet, Nikola Tesla wrote in his diary. He contemplated God as the most powerful force in the universe. What led the great inventor and scientist, who described himself as an atheist in his youth, to believe in God? This man, who often stood on the brink of death and endured many upheavals, one day penned words in his diary that changed his life. He claimed that there truly was something greater. Tesla said he had heard voices guiding him in creating his greatest inventions. Moreover, he was convinced that the souls of those who lived before us continue to exist in another form. Tesla often emphasized that the source of his discoveries was not his intellect but the inspirations that came to him. He described them as a capability to see into the future and find answers to the most challenging questions. The first such inspiration occurred in 1882 during a walk. He clearly envisioned the alternating current motor, its design, and its operation. Without paper at hand, he drew the diagram directly in the sand. That moment became a turning point in his life. From then on, the inspirations came more frequently. These phenomena fascinated Tesla so much that he decided to uncover their origin. He turned to psychologists and scientists, but no one could provide him with a definitive explanation. Then Tesla began conducting his own investigations. At one point, he hypothesized that the hints he received were coming from a highly developed extraterrestrial civilization. However, years later, while living in America, he realized that this hypothesis did not align with the truth. It was only many years later that Tesla found the answer, which fundamentally altered his worldview. One ordinary day, he awoke with a new, intense inspiration. In that moment, he understood, all of his discoveries were a gift from God. Through these inspirations, Tesla had received proof of the existence of a higher power guiding him. Finally, the day has come when I have realized that God exists, he wrote in his diary. Deeply moved, he decided to visit an Orthodox church immediately to express his gratitude. But, as life often does, it presented an unexpected twist. The taxi he took did not know the way to the church. This incident became another reminder for Tesla that the path to God is not a road in the conventional sense but an inner journey requiring understanding and faith. Nikola Tesla, filled with excitement and impatience, searched for an Orthodox church, but New York felt like an endless labyrinth where the churches seemed to have disappeared from the face of the earth. The taxi driver, noticing his passengers' confusion, stopped at every police officer they encountered, hoping they could point the way. But no one could help. "I was agitated and confused," Tesla wrote in his diary. "I should have called someone from my homeland to find out where they prayed, but it didn't occur to me." After an hour, all hope seemed lost. But one more police officer remembered that there was an Orthodox church near his house. "It has those onion domes with crosses on the cupolas," he said. "Yes," Tesla exclaimed so loudly that both the officer and the driver flinched. And so, they finally arrived at 97th Street, at the Church of St. Nicholas. In that moment, Tesla felt that this was the final sign sent to him from above. The words and life path of Nikola Tesla are indeed a source of deep inspiration. He embodied the pursuit of knowledge and innovation while simultaneously emphasizing the moral responsibility for his discoveries and their impact on the world. His example shows how important it is to respect both scientific and spiritual values, and how these two realms can harmonize. Tesla taught us that true greatness lies not only in technological progress, but also in respecting human ethics and responsibility towards society. It is crucial that, in an increasingly technologized world, we do not forget the deeper meaning of human experience and values. Tesla's philosophy reminds us that science and spirituality do not have to exclude each other, but can complement one another to promote the well-being of humanity. Thank you for sharing these thoughts. It is always valuable to reflect on the connection between knowledge and spirituality. May the path of knowledge also be one of wisdom and responsibility.